Welcome back everyone to a video, and today we are ranking every single quarterback's 2024 season. Now, before you guys fast forward in the video to see where I rank your favorite quarterback, please just keep one thing in mind because I know I'm going to get some comments. I just want to make this very, very clear. This is ranking these quarterbacks on the 2024 to 2025 NFL season, on how they performed in regards to their own success, how they helped the rest of their team. Team record will factor in to some degree, which is kind of like, I guess subjective. We'll get to it when we get to it. All that to say, though, just because I might not have, someone who had a great season above, actually here, no, let me rephrase that. Just because I might have someone who is not usually better than another quarterback above them, that does not mean that goes for all the time. We're not comparing careers. It is just this season. So please keep that in mind. I know I'm going to get some comments, which again, if you disagree, totally fine. We can talk about that in the comments or not, or you can be mean to me. I don't really care either way. But I do just want to make it clear, though, that we're not comparing careers. I've got that comment before, which, again, if you do think we're comparing careers, this is going to look really, really weird. So try to keep that in mind that it is for this season only. With that said, though, I've done these rankings before. If you'd like to see more of them, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you want to see other ones I've done, go check those out. We have 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and 25 through 32. So we're just going straight through here. Before we get into it, the only other thing to keep in mind, not everyone's going to be used here. I'm not going to rank someone like Joe Flacco or Andy Dalton because they didn't play even close to a full season, and they weren't the starting quarterback initially, so it's kind of weird to put them in here over someone who played like 10 more games, and then if that makes sense. And then the final thing to keep in mind, for whatever reason, when this list was made, Russell Wilson was just not the quarterback, so Justin Fields is on here. We're going to have to pretend that Justin Fields is Russell Wilson, okay? So just pretend you've never seen Russell Wilson or Justin Fields in your life. This guy right here is now Russell Wilson because otherwise we can't rank Russ. With all that to say, though, we're going to jump right into it, though. Going from 32 all the way up to 1, starting with, in my opinion, the worst quarterback in the NFL this year, that's going to be Deshaun Watson. And he did not play a full season. He did have an injury. But we've seen this the past couple seasons. Again, we're ranking just this season. But we've seen the past couple seasons with Watson struggling. This year, hoping to see him bounce back, him take that next step to looking like his, former self in Houston, and it's just not there. It's just not there. He's just not the player he used to be, and it is what it is. I seriously would say Watson is the worst quarterback in the NFL this year. Even going back to this past offseason, at one point I said that I would rather have Jameis Winston in there than Deshaun Watson. I felt like it was really risky saying that, but I just kind of had that inkling, and honestly, I don't think it's that far off, honestly. I think if Watson played a full season and Winston played a full season, you would get similar results. I truly believe that. Next is going to be Daniel Jones, though, and I don't know why I can't find it. Oh, there he is. Daniel Jones, it's just, it is what it is. I don't think a lot of people really expected much from him this year. Hopefully I was hoping he'd be back healthy after that ACL tear, which looks like he's healthy, but he's just not putting things together. He had that great season in 2022. And after that, it's been back to really struggling. Now finds himself in Minnesota. Not good. Daniel Jones goes there. Next is going to be Aiden O'Connell. Again, didn't play a whole lot. The guys all at the bottom have all been kind of banged up and just not been very good, just to kind of see the pattern now. But O'Connell, he looked okay. Nearly beat the Chiefs. I'll give him that. He nearly beat the Chiefs. But again, of course, came down to that final play with a fumble. Either way, not really impressive. Doubt he'll do much next year unless there's an injury, because I would assume the Raiders are taking a quarterback in the draft this year. So Aiden O'Connell goes there. And then at 29 is actually going to be Will Levis. And Will Levis is someone that I cannot find. Will Levis. Where? Okay, he's right here. Will Levis is someone that I think some people did predict him to kind of have one of those, not breakout seasons this year, but kind of taking a step and just seeing, okay, he can be a quarterback in the NFL. And it just wasn't good. Will Levis, he was not very good when he played, and he got hurt. It was a rough season for the Titans overall, but you do now find yourself at, pick 1. So hopefully you can kind of reset now, get a new quarterback. You fired your GM, so kind of a fresh start. Levis just not the answer, unfortunately, so he's going to go there. This is when it starts getting a little bit interesting, though. So next, I'm actually going to put Richardson here. And look, I'm going to be honest. I have been a huge supporter of Richardson, at least on my channel. I've talked about how I think he has the tools to be a good quarterback. I think he will make that jump. And truly, I think everyone agrees the potential is there. It's just people disagree whether or not he's actually going to put it together and be a good quarterback. And that is where this year really came into play. I would like to say, though, for one, if you look at his stats, it does not give the context to why those numbers were the way that they were. And I want to say one thing. Yes, it was a bad year. Richardson had some very dumb mistakes at times, but there were a lot of big plays where he put the ball right on the money and they were dropped. They were dropped. I'm not going to say a lot, but A.D. Mitchell had quite a few costly drops that would have been big plays throughout the season. So, again, not going to say he is way better than it looks, but those numbers could be a bit better in his defense. Overall, though, Richardson needs to, next year is going to be probably prove it or lose it at this point. I think the tools are there, but if he doesn't make the jump, then, he doesn't make the jump. I'm trying to speed through the guys down here so we can get to some of the more important players. No offense to these guys, but again, I want to get to some of the bigger names. Next is actually going to be Trevor Lawrence. And again, this one kind of hurts me a little bit because I have been a huge supporter for Trevor Lawrence. I've been kind of on, not the hype train, but I've been backing him up, saying things aren't completely his fault. I still do believe that, but at a certain point, you have to do something to propel this team forward and to elevate the guys around you. Even if everyone else isn't doing their job, even if the rest of the team's bad, because it's clear. Sometimes it's very clear when a quarterback is doing all they can with what they have and the rest is being held back. Specifically, in the past few seasons, Justin Herbert's name is in that conversation a lot, with the guys around him not being good enough for him to actually get into big games and stuff like that. Trevor, I think, is the same way to a certain degree. The only difference is, though, Trevor is also not pulling all of his weight, and it's showing, unfortunately. Really nasty concussion at the end of the year. Hopefully he's all right, and, everything goes smoothly in his kind of, transition back onto, contact and full speed drills and all. But, yeah, next year's going to be a big year for Trevor Lawrence as well, and the Jaguars as a whole, or else there's going to be a lot changing. Very weird division right now. A lot of teams on division in some very different places in terms of, where their team building is. But, yeah, so Trevor, he's going to go there. And then to round out the 8, we're going to have Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott down here. And I'm not going to lie, it's weird having them this low. These are quarterbacks that are usually in the upper half of the NFL. Maybe if you're a huge fan, then you'd even put him like a top 10 at one point. But this year is just not a good year for Kirk or Dak. Starting with Kirk Cousins, at first it was great. I mean, to be fair, first it was slow, but then it got great. He had like a 5-touchdown game in prime time. He was looking much better. And then all of a sudden, it just slowed down. And then after it slowed down, it just dropped off a cliff. I think he went like 4 games without a touchdown, like 8 interceptions and no touchdowns. Really, really, really bad. Feel bad for Kirk. As a Panthers fan, I was happy to see the Falcons struggle, but just Kirk come off the Achilles tear. I wanted to see him be healthier than that. And also just, was not good decision-making on his part a lot of times as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him next year, because Penix looked pretty good when he got in the game, but the Falcons owe him money, so they cut their losses, they hang on to him. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Dak Prescott, kind of the same thing. Gets banged up, really bad hamstring injury. Even before that, the Cowboys were struggling a lot. Maybe it has something to do with, I don't know, not bringing in any new talent to the team that already came up short last year. If I had to guess, might add to it. I don't know, though. Dak and CeeDee, though, amazing duo. They really are great. They can't win every game themselves. The Cowboys need other talent, but when you have an owner that seems to not really feel like adding new talent to the team, it sucks, and it shows on the field. So, yeah, that is the bottom 8 quarterbacks in the NFL this season, in my opinion. Again, keep in mind, Minshew is not being ranked, Dalton is not being ranked, and Flacco is not being ranked. So, that's the bottom 8. Then starting out number 24 is actually going to be Derek Carr. So, Derek Carr is someone that I've been completely honest about and just said I do not see it in him anymore. The past 2 years, I haven't really thought much of him. This year, the first 2 weeks, I was ready to break my TV in half watching how good the Saints were and them 40-piecing the Panthers in week 1. Then after that, you had injuries pile up and things just got very dysfunctional very fast. You had to rely on guys like Spencer Rattler whenever Derek Carr got hurt, and Alvin Kamara is just, kind of your main weapon after Chris Olave goes down again with another concussion, which is just brutal for him. Then at the end of the year, Taysom Hill also gets hurt. Really, really bad for the Saints. Bad luck, bad season. Derek Carr, for what it's worth, I don't think was as bad as I thought he would be. He had some decent moments this year, but again, I have him toward the bottom of the quarterbacks this year. And then number 23, I'm going to have Tua here. I'm going to be honest, I was incredibly disappointed in Tua this year, and I know he was hurt and he was banged up. I'm not going to focus on that. When he was playing, though, very disappointed. Things just did not look like they were on the same page at all. I'm not sure whether that's a Mike McDaniel issue or a Tua issue or both. But when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and everyone looks so unmotivated to be on the field and to play, it's a serious issue. And to be honest with you, I'm absolutely shocked the Dolphins were actually in the playoff race until the final game of the season. I'm very happy they didn't get in because they would have just got absolutely smacked and get in the wild card anyways. But seriously though, Tua did not look very sharp. I hope he can stay healthy. Obviously moving forward with all of his history of having head injuries at this point, but even when he was healthy this year, you got to get the ball to your playmakers. You got to have less hesitation and know what you're doing. And maybe it is a coaching issue and things are just getting stale there in Miami. I don't really know, but Tua definitely number 23 for me. And then the first rookie going to be ranked is going to be Drake May at number 22. So this might be very high, where some of you might have ranked Drake May. But one thing I would like to really point out here is that Drake May did not get the full season, rookie head coach that has since been fired, and also had no one to get the ball to. And he still looked really good at times, at least in my opinion. To be fair, I was very high on Drake May coming out of college. Actually, at the time, I had him over Jayden Daniels, which now looks like that was probably a bad call. But for what it's worth, Drake May did look very good at times this year, and he's also way younger than Jayden Daniels. I'm not going to get into the whole comparison of like whatever, but Drake May on his own, I think he had some great moments. He's able to extend plays really well. He did the best with what he had, I think, honestly. A little high in interceptions, but again, it's a rookie and a very bad offense. I mean, it was bound to happen, so I'm very confident in Drake May moving forward. I'll have a lot of offseason videos, well, not a lot, but I'll have a few offseason videos on him and the Patriots this year. But Drake May ranks number 22 for me. And then number 21 is going to be Russell Wilson. Okay, remember, it is Russell Wilson. As a picture of Justin Fields, I'm ranking Russell Wilson, okay, because there is no Russell Wilson on here. So Justin Fields' picture is Russell Wilson, just so we can get that out of the way again. Russell Wilson goes number 21 for me. I was impressed with Russ at times, definitely better than he was in Denver. Things did look smoother, but they really imploded at the worst possible time where it looked like Russ didn't know what he was doing or panicked or the offense hated each other with George Pickens throwing tantrums and Russ not seeing him, Russ making bad plays. It was everything that possibly could have gone wrong, went wrong at the most pivotal point in the season. I mean, they lost like almost 5 straight, I think. They were 10-2 at one point, finished like 10-7. Really, really bad. Russ did have a decent year. I'm not gonna, rank him way down there because he had a bad end of the season. It was a good year for Russell Wilson. So that's why Russell Wilson, not Justin Fields, is gonna be number 21. And then another rookie being ranked, I'm gonna put Caleb Williams here at 20. So Caleb Williams going into this year, I want to say I had him at 16. I'm not totally sure. I want to say I had him at 16. And I do think this was a fair ranking for him. I mean, at least right here is a fair ranking for him. I mean, when you're sacked as much as he was, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It truly is. And I even saw a chart that said he actually evaded 50 sacks this year, which for one is crazy on its own. And two, had he not even evaded half of those, I mean, I'm not even sure his sack total in the year, but he would have been sacked close to like 100 times. So a lot of that is not on him. Some of it is, some of his decision-making, you could tell, tried to run around, get away with things that he could have got away with back in, at USC. Can't get away with it now, trying to extend plays too long. But you could also definitely see the arm talent there. The arm talent was there, extending plays was there, the ridiculous cross-body throws. The talent is there for Caleb Williams. And one thing I want to say, too, is because people, especially Panthers and Bears fans, have a lot of things back and forth after the whole Bryce Young trade and whatever. But I do want to say, to be fair, Bryce Young improved a whole lot this season. As you can see, I haven't even ranked him yet. And, I'm very happy he improved this year. But he got so much hate for being a huge bust and all this stuff that, Panthers fans especially were saying last year, he didn't have help. Bryce Young didn't have help last year. He didn't have good blocking. He didn't have good coaching. He didn't have playmakers. So I don't see why we don't extend that same grace to Caleb Williams this season, because we just saw what Bryce Young did in a similar situation last year when he was terrible. This year he improved. So why can't we think Caleb Williams wouldn't improve next year as well, assuming things get better? So that's why, like, yeah, I have him at 20. Yeah, things are bad this year. They could have been worse. Caleb Williams is very talented, and I do think you have to try and not see that, to be honest, because the arm talent is there. He's a great player. Maybe he's lower than what people thought he would have been ranked, but I'm going to have him there at number 20. Now, the next couple quarterbacks are all very interchangeable for me, so if you have one over the other, I don't really blame you. I'm putting Kyler Murray next. Reason I have him over Caleb Williams is because I think the Cardinals were just expected to not be near as good as the Bears were. The Bears disappointed. The Cardinals did better than what was hoped. Kyler Murray was a big piece of that. He made some bad mistakes down the stretch at times, but I do think Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. Not one of his better seasons. And it's disappointing because he does have great weapons. I mean, Trey McBride is phenomenal. Marvin Harrison Jr. was very solid in year one. Michael Wilson is very underrated. James Conner out of the backfield. It was not a bad offense. I wouldn't say Kyler underperformed, but I think it could have been better. Regardless, I think he is a good quarterback, and I think the Call of Duty jokes just get to a point where it's like, you got to respect him to some degree, and I do think he had a good season. But again, if you have Caleb Williams over him or the next couple of guys I have ranked here, I can see it because this part of the ranking where it's like probably 14 through like 18, it's very, very tough for me to rank those players. So next, number 18, I'm going to have Aaron Rodgers. So Rodgers is one I'm expecting to get comments on because people are so just all over the place with him. It seems like you either love him or you hate him, or you think he was terrible this year, or you think it was not totally his fault this year, or whatever. I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle because I see two polar opposites all the time when discussing Aaron Rodgers. I will say one thing. He had 28 touchdowns this year to like 11 interceptions, which, in my opinion, before I saw that, I assumed it was much worse, honestly. Now, to be fair, you have to also think how many of those games were they actually in and competing when he recorded those touchdowns, which, maybe not as many. But again, this is a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. I think it could have been worse. I think Rodgers does still have value as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm not going to say he is a top 10 quarterback at this point. I just don't think it's there anymore. But to say that he's like completely washed, bottom 10 quarterback, I really don't think that's true either. You can still go back, watch plays this year where Rodgers' ridiculous like flick of the wrist throws for like 55 yards. It's still there. The arm talent is still there. He's 40 years old, coming off a very bad Achilles injury. I think this is expected to some degree. The Jets complete another failure, I wouldn't say is a expectation for this year. It wasn't an expectation for this year. But Rodgers' struggles, I don't think it was really, too far out there of possibility. It's unfortunate it happened, but I still think Rodgers is not quite as bad as the narrative is often pushed about him this year. And then number 17, I'm going to rank my guy Bryce Young there. Very, very happy for Bryce Young this year. So he had 21 total touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and majority of those interceptions were back probably up to like week 8 or 9. After that, his final like 10 games of the season, he was honestly phenomenal. And the Panthers' poor defense lost them a lot of those games. They lost them a close game against the Falcons, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, the Chiefs. It was like several games the Panthers could have won, which, to be honest, kind of happy they didn't. Better draft pick. But, I mean, if those games would have went the other way, the Panthers could have really won their division, honestly. And Bryce Young was a huge, huge piece of that. His ability to extend plays, it seriously is that kind of Alabama Bryce where he looks very composed even when the play's breaking down. He makes plays with his legs if he has to. He was very, very good. Very happy for him. Hope he starts off next season hot as well and doesn't start off slow again. But him being benched and taking like a professional, continuing to work hard, really, honestly, probably saved his career. So that's the bottom 16 quarterbacks in the NFL this year, in my opinion. Make sure to let me know down below what you think of the bottom 16 quarterbacks. Next, we're going to the top 16. Again, 14 through 18, very, very tough for me to rank. Next is going to be Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was very difficult for me to rank this year because there's a lot of things to weigh. First off, he had a lot of interceptions. He didn't play as good as we know he is capable of playing. But to be fair, he's missing Christian McCaffrey. He was missing Brandon Ayuk. It's just like, it's hard. It's hard because it's like you have to still be good to at least some degree, kind of elevate some guys around you. But I think he did. Jauan Jennings stepped up big time. Brock Purdy did a great job kind of utilizing what he had because Deebo Samuel kind of fell off a cliff this year, so he was really working with Jawan Jennings and George Kittle for the most part. Ricky Pearsall was great whenever he kind of started getting more reps at the end of the year, so it's cool to see him, healthy and everything after what happened to him back in the fall. But Brock Purdy is a difficult player for me to rank because it's very hard to know what is the cause of not having enough guys around him versus himself versus also the shoulder injury he was dealing with. So it's kind of tough for me. I can understand having Purdy anywhere from 16 to like 20, to be honest with you. But he's going to go 16 for me. And then number 15 is going to be Jalen Hurts. Now, this might be one that is much lower than people thought I might have him at. I got to be honest, I thought Jalen Hurts after 2022 was really going to push to become like a fringe top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I really did. I liked Hurts a lot in college. I thought it was all going great in the NFL, but he's just wildly inconsistent to me. And I'm not going to really count a lot of the push touchdowns like as his total touchdowns because it's just like, yeah, it's a stat, but like you got to know the context behind it, if that makes sense. But again, he does run this offense in a way that it works. Even if it's not always pretty, they are winning games. As of right now, they're literally in the NFC Championship. Again, not going to weigh that into these rankings, but I do think Hurts is a big part of the Eagles' success because of his ability to be a runner if he needs to or to get out of pressure. I think it's inconsistent, though, because sometimes he doesn't utilize his legs and he takes bad sacks. And other times he forces the ball into windows where there's really no point in doing that. So Hurts is a tough guy for me to rank. But again, I think 15 is fair. His team is in the NFC Championship, yet I have him ranked fairly low. So that's just where I see Jalen Hurts ranking. But he's a tough player to pin down for me. He's really all over the place. And then at 14 is going to be CJ Stroud. So Stroud is also one that a lot of people, like myself, was very high on coming into this year after the rookie season he just had. You have Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and you go and you get Stephon Diggs. You still have Dalton Schultz. You sign Joe Mixon. It's like this amazing offense. And even when guys were healthy, it really wasn't that amazing. Stroud just seemed like he second-guessed himself a lot or just tried to get too much in one play, and it often resulted in an interception or just a costly third down they didn't convert. Happened a lot this year. With that said, I think people trying to now drag Stroud down and say he's not good. I don't think that's fair either because he was missing a lot of guys this year. He was missing Tank Dell with that brutal leg injury. I believe he's supposed to miss all of next season as well. So just awful for Tank Dell. But then, you lose Stephon Diggs, the torn ACL. And with all that said, you still have Nico Collins. You still have Joe Mixon. You still have Dalton Schultz. You still have Xavier Hutchinson, who steps up at times. But it's not the same, and Stroud did make a lot of really bad mistakes this year, but I still think it's very unfair to try and drop him out of the top 16. I think Stroud's a good quarterback. He can definitely have a much better season next year, and at the end of the day, he did help get his team to the divisional round again. And at number 13, I'm going to have Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith is also another really weird one to rank because I could also see him more at like 16, 17, but at the same time, Geno Smith is very, very good. The only thing is, this year he had way too many turnovers. He doesn't usually have, I don't think, as many turnovers, or at least as many just dumb mistakes. Again, you could seriously do like this, and I wouldn't really blame you. If you want, I can just throw him right here. I could even throw him right here, honestly. It doesn't really make a difference for me. Reason I have Geno Smith here, though, is because for what he was working with, I think, he has a very young receiver in JSN. Metcalf's great. Lockett is aging. This team is not as good as you would think they were because I think when you hear Seahawks, you think, oh, they got all these great weapons. It's really not as like pretty as it used to be, but Geno Smith does still operate the offense very, very well. He is able to read the field well, and I think it really helps JSN because he's able to go open a lot, and Geno did a great job of finding JSN this year, who had a great second season. So, yeah, turnovers are a little high. Very costly loss to the Giants that kind of kept you out of the playoffs, honestly. So, again, Geno could be further down here, but I like to have him there because I think Geno is one of the more overlooked quarterbacks in the NFL who I do think deserves a bit more respect for the, honestly, just amazing comeback in his career he's kind of had. And I'm going to kind of show some crazy respect here. Number 12 is going to be Bo Nix. I'm going to be completely honest with all of you guys. If you would have told me back in August that Bo Nix would finish the season at 12 overall on my rankings, I would have thought you were nuts, to be honest. I thought Bo Nix was taken way too high in the draft. I did not think enough would really come together in that offense for him to be able to, one, run the offense well, or B, not feel like he has to just make these ridiculous throws and throw into pressure constantly. But Bo Nix was very patient at times. He used his legs perfectly to extend plays, to take what the defense was giving him. He was very, very smart. And whether you want to credit Sean Payton for that, Bo Nix being overlooked, the Broncos, run game they were able to get going at times this year with like several different running backs they had, whatever it is, I think Bo Nix surprised a lot of people this year. He definitely surprised me. Did Bo Nix have a better season than maybe Stroud or Hurts? It's probably pretty close, but I'm going to give Nix the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to throw him up there at 13 or 12 because he really did surprise me. And Broncos made the wild card, even though they didn't win. They didn't compete all that great. That's a huge, huge win for the Broncos in Bo Nix's first season, along with Sean Payton. Well, Sean Payton's second season, but I don't really count the first one where Russell Wilson was taking Sean Payton hostage because Sean Payton hated him so much. Then number 11, I'm actually going to have Jordan Love. So Jordan Love I like Jordan Love. I really do. But this guy is also kind of like, I would like to say, Stroud this year in the sense of throwing the ball when you don't really need to force it where certain defenders are. It's so weird. Every time Jordan Love drops back to pass and he throws a deep ball, before the camera gets to the receiver, I'm either imagining someone completely just wide open or triple coverage because you have no idea what you're getting when Jordan Love throws the ball deep sometimes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Bottom line, though, Jordan Love, I think, is a great quarterback. This year was very rough for the Packers. I don't think he was really able to ever get his footing, no pun intended, after hurting his leg this year in week 1. I feel like it's just always kind of nagged at him, and the Packers were always kind of out of sync anyways. Later in the season, Christian Watson goes down with the torn ACL at the end of the year, so that really sucks as well. Jordan Love, though, did have a great season in my opinion. Needs to cut down the turnovers, but again, you can still be a great quarterback and have high turnovers. Purdy had high turnovers. Geno had high turnovers. Love had high turnovers. But, I still think that the value is undeniable there. The Packers definitely found their franchise guy in Jordan Love. Maybe the season wasn't as amazing as Packers fans envisioned after the way last year's end of the year went with Love, but I still think he's a great quarterback. And then at number 10, we're going to have Justin Herbert. So I think Herbert had a great season. 23 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Not counting the wild card game where that number was bumped up just a tiny bit. But seriously, jokes aside, I thought Herbert was going to struggle this year because I didn't really know what the offense was going to look like. I was very hesitant. I thought Ladd McConkey was going to be great, but I did not imagine him having the rookie season he had. I did not imagine Quentin Johnston, as costly as some of his drops have been, he did step up at times, and he did help out the team. So I get it. I get the jokes. I get the drops. It is an issue, but at times it was much better than last year. You got to at least give him credit there. To be fair, the bar was kind of low anyways. But Herbert, I did think he had a great season. Cut down the turnovers almost completely. I think he ran the offense very well. Got the run game going. Will Dissly, a bit of an unsung hero in the offense as well. Herbert's able to utilize him very well too. So yeah, Herbert, great season. Unfortunate end to the season, though, is all I can say there. And then at number 9, I'm going to have Sam Darnold. And this is one I can see people having an issue with just because of the season he had. I'm not really going to factor in that playoff game. I tried to kind of keep playoffs aside of all these rankings. It's just ranking the regular season, because I'm ranking everybody. But, it's hard to keep that aside, but we will. Sam Darnold, though, this season, he had a great year. He really did. And it was way better than I envisioned. I had the Vikings going 9-8 in my preseason predictions. Maybe it was 8-9. I think it was 9-8. But it was just going into it, I was like, okay, Sam Darnold, I watched this guy in Carolina as a fan, and he looks great at times, but it's never consistent enough to put together a full, strong season. And I was wrong. Sam Darnold did put together a very strong regular season. Again, amazing offense. Kevin O'Connell does an amazing job. It's a great system. It's a great scheme. When you have guys like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson, and, it's very, I'm not going to say it's hard to fail, but it's quite the kind of cushion to fall back on. Whereas, at the Jets, he was once Robbie Anderson. Like, it wasn't quite the same. So I'm happy he had a great season. It doesn't seem like he'll be in Minnesota next year, though, which is tough. But, is what it is. Darnold still had a great season. He's going to be in the top 10 for me at number 9. All right, so now it's time for the top 8 quarterbacks. Again, not ranking, Flacco or Andy Dalton or, Brissett or whatever. So, yeah, let me know down below, though, what you guys think of, the other 24 we have on here. I think it's very tough for me to always do rankings like this. This is the best way I could do it. I am happy with these rankings. Again, they're not perfect, so just let me know down below what you guys agree or disagree with, though. Number 8, though, is going to be Jayden Daniels for me. Very, very high for a rookie, but I truly believe he deserves this spot over guys like Justin Herbert, like Sam Darnold, like Bo Nix, like Jordan Love. Jayden Daniels, I think Washington. I'm not certain on this, but I believe at the beginning of the season, like if you go back to probably mid-August, the Commanders' win total, if you were to bet, was set at like 3.5 wins. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. It might have been 4.5. It was incredibly low. And now he has his team playing in the NFC Championship game. And again, I said I'd leave the playoffs out of it, so I will, because I still think he's deserving the spot just looking at the regular season. When your win total is 3.5 games and you managed to get to like 12 or whatever it was. And again, it wasn't pretty at times. Started off very strong. Had a rough middle of the year, but they were able to kind of climb back. Daniels, though, and look, this might sound like a crazy comparison. I'm not comparing them as players, but if you look at like torso and up, as far as the mannerisms go, he reminds me so much of Lamar Jackson. And when he's on the run and he rolling out, throws it deep, just his pump faking, everything. The mannerisms there are totally Lamar Jackson for me. Lamar is just levels better, obviously, but still. Daniels is phenomenal. And I'm happy because guys like Terry McLaurin that just have not always been respected because they haven't been able to produce without a good quarterback, now they're getting respect. But the crazy thing to me, though, is the drop-off after that. Remember, they got rid of Jahan Dotson like a week before the season started. And everybody was like, wow, now your rookie quarterback has only Terry McLaurin. Clearly they knew what they were doing, though, because they were able to get other guys involved. Zach Ertz, namely, I mean, this is not a young player whatsoever, and he was a huge guy for them down the stretch of the season. Austin Eckler, not a young guy by any means, but he was a huge guy for them down the season. He was very, very good. Shout out to Dyami Brown, I believe. I think that's how you say his first name, for really kind of breaking out this year, having a huge season at times for them. Daniels is just phenomenal. Does it all with his legs. He's much smarter, which was a huge concern for me because whenever I was looking at him kind of at college, he took a lot of unnecessary hits in college, trying to hurdle people and doing crazy stuff. He's calmed that down, which I think is definitely for the best. It's probably why he's still healthy. So yeah, everything that possibly could have gone right for Daniels and the Commanders went right. Couldn't be happier for him. I think Daniels is absolutely deserving of the 8th overall spot in my correct rankings. And then at number 7, I'm going to put Matthew Stafford here. And I think Matthew Stafford is one of the most overlooked quarterbacks of all time, to be honest. I think he just never, ever gets the respect he deserves. And I think it still happens this year. The Rams were not very good at times. They lost Puka for an extended amount of time. They lost Cooper Kupp for an extended amount of time. And the fact that they were even in the divisional round was just mind-blowing to me. And a huge part of that has to go with Stafford. Now, I actually made a video talking about why I think the defense was so good, which is the young D-line. If you didn't see the video, go check it out, though, if you didn't see it. But on offense, a huge piece of it's Matthew Stafford. And I don't think people understand the level of play this guy plays at sometimes for his age. I mean, he's out here throwing these no-look passes that Mahomes always gets posted 50 times on ESPN for. And this just never really made anything about Matthew Stafford for some reason. I think he has one of the most talented arms in the entire NFL, to be honest with you. His ball placement is unbelievable. And I think that maybe this is too high of a ranking, but I truly believe with where the Rams were at in the season turnaround offensively, a huge piece of it, if not, I'm not going to say the only piece of it, it is a team game, but Matthew Stafford was probably the biggest piece of that in my opinion. I think he does deserve to be ranked in the top 10. And then at number 6, I'm so excited to do this one, I'm ranking Baker Mayfield here. And Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal season. He had a lot of interceptions, he had a lot of turnovers, but he had over 40 touchdowns. I could not be happier for Baker Mayfield after the way Cleveland did him. Carolina, he struggled and whatever, but he's really found a home in Tampa Bay. You lose Chris Godwin for the rest of the season. That was brutal. To me, that was like, man, they were looking so good, and now, whatever. And, they still made the playoffs. They really still made it. Almost managed to beat Washington as well, but Baker was able to operate the offense without Mike Evans for a time, without Chris Godwin. He was getting the ball to like Jalen McMillan, who stepped up huge for them down the stretch. Bucky Irving, Rachaad White, great running back duo. Cade Otton, I believe he missed time this year as well. So the Buccaneers were banged up at times, and Baker was still able to produce. And he's just one of those guys that I think you just like to see Baker succeed. He's just a very tough competitor. You can tell he loves football. He's able to run through contact. He does not care. He will get the first down. I'm very happy for Baker Mayfield. You could probably rank him behind Matthew Stafford or behind Jaden Daniels or something, but I think he's deserving of being this high because seriously, him not on the Buccaneers, if you were to put in someone even just like Geno Smith or Stroud or Purdy, I don't think they'd be as good. I think Baker deserves a lot of respect there. And then at number 5 is going to be Patrick Mahomes. So this is why I said before to please remember I'm ranking this season specifically because if I were to just do general quarterback rankings, I do think Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL for what it's worth, if that helps all of you Chiefs fans. I do think he's the best. This year, though, I'd have him at number 5. I think, yes, team success, you're 15-1 or you're 15-2, I guess, technically, but they rested their starters. The amount of, close games they managed to come out on top of was honestly unreal. A large part of that's credited to the offense, but a large part of that's also credited to Patrick Mahomes. And it's really unfortunate to me that the officiating becomes so one-sided at times for the Chiefs because it becomes the focus when it really starts to distract from just how good their players are, especially Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this is someone who, for his age, has the best resume for any quarterback ever at his age. And no one cares because everyone wants to see him lose because of how hard the NFL pushes the officiating to favor the Chiefs at times. And I think it sucks. It distracts from the point of just how good Mahomes is and the rest of the team, but especially Mahomes. So it makes it harder to appreciate it, and I understand the frustrations watching the games where personal foul calls are just not personal fouls. It's just to kind of help, move the Chiefs forward at times. And it sucks because the Chiefs are a good enough team to win those games without it. It's not even necessary. And I think that's what also annoys me so much is that, like, when you have someone this good who's never missed the AFC Championship game and you still think you have to call, roughing the passer calls and late hits out of bounds when it's very controversial, just let him play. Just let him play. He can win these on his own accord because he is that good. But again, it's to the point now where people don't care. They don't want to appreciate it now. And a large part of that is the NFL's fault, to be honest. Again, all in my opinion. But Mahomes, 5th this year. He had like 26 touchdowns, I believe. Passing touchdowns at least. A little high in the turnovers, but again, he's working with a much older Travis Kelce, who was not a whole lot much of a factor in the regular season. You lose Rashee Rice for the entire year. You lost Hollywood Brown for the entire year before the year even started. So again, it was a rough offense, but they made it work. Pacheco was hurt for a large portion of the year as well. But yeah, they're somehow 15-1, still alive in the playoffs. Just a bummer. It's gotten to the point where people can't really appreciate that anymore because of officiating. And again, I blame the NFL for that. Number 4, I'm going to have Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a great season. This team averaged 30 points per game, most of the NFL, and Jared Goff was a massive part of their success. I really think that it's easy to say, oh, because of the weapons or oh, because of Ben Johnson's scheme. Jared Goff is a great quarterback, and again, that playoff game right now, fresh in everybody's minds, doesn't help. But it's easy to overlook Jared Goff. He does a great job running that offense. He can be a clutch player. I'm not going to say he is a clutch player because, again, there's some times where things are a little rough. But Jared Goff gets disrespected very easily. I want to rank him very high this year. I think he had a great season. The Lions had a great season. Shocking the way it ended, to be honest, in my opinion. But as for the regular season, I think Jared Goff was phenomenal. And then at number 3, I'm going to have Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I think, is just awesome. And he reminds me a lot of Cam Newton as a runner because he's just a huge tank. I mean, he just runs right over guys. Very athletic for his size. And he's an exciting player. This is someone that, he lost his other two receivers. He lost Gabe Davis. He lost Stephon Diggs. It was a huge question mark on how good will the Bills be. I thought they would struggle a lot more. I didn't think they'd struggle as much as what some people were saying, but I did think that there would be a bit of a drop-off, and I think it's better. I think it allows Josh Allen to play just the way he wants to play. I think a lot of it did have to do with him feeling obligated to give Diggs however many targets, and now he's able to feed guys like Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, and really just operate the offense just how he knows to, and how he knows to is close to impossible to stop. So very exciting player to watch. One of my favorite players in the entire NFL. Huge respect for Josh Allen. Might win MVP. We'll see, but he's number 3 for me this year. And then number 2 is going to be Joe Burrow. So I have Joe Burrow this high, despite not even making the playoffs. I think everyone kind of understands why, because he was, in my opinion, basically the best quarterback in the NFL this year. And if you didn't have Joe Burrow on that Bengals team, oh man, they would have been so bad. Jamar Chase is incredible. T. Higgins is great. Chase Brown is very solid. But seriously, if you took off Burrow and you put I'm not going to throw another quarterback in there, but if you were to throw someone else in there, it would have been so bad. And Burrow kept them in games. He single-handedly kept drives alive. He went just all out. He left it all on the field this year, truly. And you could tell. I think he heard the conversations of people forgot how good he was because, now he's injury-prone and he hurt his wrist. He's not going to ever hold a football the same way again. All out of here. All out of here. He deserves to make the playoffs. His defense let him down big time. But again, it's a team game. It comes down to, week 1. You beat the Patriots week 1. Beat the Patriots week 1, you're in the playoffs. They couldn't do it. Couldn't even hold a ball correctly for a field goal against the Ravens. Lost in a controversial way against the Chiefs. Just beat themselves up down the line, and that's why they missed the playoffs. But Joe Burrow himself, in my opinion, if the Bengals made the playoffs, Joe Burrow would have been second in the MVP voting, or first, honestly. So, he's number 2 for me. Which means I have the number 1 quarterback in the NFL this year being Lamar Jackson. Okay, that's not Lamar Jackson. Being Lamar Jackson. Lamar had over 40 total touchdowns to 5 interceptions or something just absolutely ridiculous. And it truly blows my mind. There was seriously a conversation about this guy's ability to pass a football. It's just ridiculous to me. And I've always been a huge fan of Lamar Jackson. You can go back a couple years now, back to even 2022. Whenever I first started doing NFL videos, I would always rank Lamar very high. I don't think I've ever ranked him out of the top 5. And I remember I used to get comments actually saying I appreciate the Lamar Jackson respect, from Ravens fans and even non-Ravens fans too, because seriously, this guy can throw a football. And the fact that it was ever in question blows my mind. Lamar is an amazing thrower of the football. I'm not even going to talk about his running ability, actually. We're just going to leave that completely out of the equation. Zay Flowers, great this year. Really sucks he got injured to end the season. Really sucks. Really sucks Mark Andrews, his hands became concrete too. That's also a brutal injury to have. But Lamar Jackson this season was phenomenal. Being able to elevate guys like Rashad Bateman, who came up big for them at times this year. And it was just awesome. It was awesome football. I'm not going to avoid the elephant in the room, I guess. Having Derrick Henry back there doesn't hurt either. But, you take Lamar off that team, and they're not as good, truly. I think Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry is the best backfield duo in NFL history, to be honest. As far as a quarterback and running back running the ball, I don't think there's ever been a better duo than that. So, 1,000-yard rusher and a 2,000-yard rusher, absolutely unreal. Lamar is the best quarterback in the league this year, in my opinion. Joe Burrow may have had a case for being number 1 if his team's success was a bit higher, but I think having him at number 2 and not even making the playoffs is still plenty of respect there. But Lamar, best in the league this year, in my opinion. Let me know down below what you guys agree or disagree with. I think the most comments I have is probably about guys from Baker to Hurts or Purdy, all at that stretch. And to me, that's the hardest to rank, honestly. The top 5, 6, never that hard for me. But that 7 to 15, it's always very close, in my opinion. I can hear a lot of different scenarios there. So, let me know down below what you guys think. I promise I do not have a secret agenda against your favorite quarterback if I rank them low. I promise I do not. But subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. More rankings on the way soon. We'll be ranking wide receivers, running backs, teams, all that kind of stuff. I also do any other NFL videos where we talk about teams and draft stuff, all that kind of thing. On the road to 1,000 subscribers. If you guys would like to help me hit that goal, click the button just a second. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.